Cruising down the coast with the sunset in our eyes. Vancouver Island boys where the wild spirit lies. Hiking up the trails, feel that ocean breeze. Playing in the waves, living life with ease. With Vancouver Island boys you mess around and see. We're the kings of the coast, wild and free. Laughing under starlight with the fire burning bright. You fuck around and you find out when we own the night. From Tofino to Nanaimo, every corner we explore. Chasing waves and dreams, always ready for more. With our hearts so bold and our spirits high, you best believe if you cross that line, oh my. Vancouver Island boys you mess around and see. We're the kings of the coast, wild and free. Laughing under starlight with the fire burning bright. You fuck around and you find out when we own the night. From Tofino to Nanaimo, every corner we explore. Chasing waves and dreams, always ready for more. With our hearts so bold and our spirits high, you best believe if you cross that line, oh my, oh my. So raise a toast to the boys, we're a legend in the making. With every wave we ride, there's no mistaking. In this paradise we roam where the wild hearts shout. You fuck around and you find out what it's all about.
Warning: the content shared in this live stream is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the channel or its affiliates. Please be aware that live interactions may involve spontaneous discussions that are unscripted and not fact-checked. Some language used in this performance may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Always do your own research and consult professionals where necessary. And remember,
stay dirty, stay dusty, and stay in the bush. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thrilling episode of See You Next Tuesday with IslandJason. Today, we're absolutely buzzing with excitement. Look at me, I'm just shaking. As we welcome the enigmatic Canadian taco into our studio. With a name that evokes images of zesty flavors and fiesta vibes, you might be surprised to discover that there's not a single tortilla in sight. Instead, this captivating guest is driven by an unyielding passion for the rugged Tacoma, his impressive knowledge of firearms for hunting and wilderness defense, and he's deeply immersed in the enchanting world of the great outdoors, boasting remarkable bushcraft and survival skills that he's eager to share. As a dedicated prepper with a fearless voice of political dissent, Canadian Taco invites us to embark on a wild and unpredictable journey through his unconventional hobbies and intriguing perspectives that often defy the norm. So strap in and prepare for an engaging conversation that promises to veer deliciously far from the traditional taco route. This episode is sure to challenge your perceptions and ignite your curiosity. I'm going to bring Taco in right now. Where are you? Dual layout. There we go. Good morning. You there, buddy? There we go. Buddy? Good morning. Good morning. Wait. How are you today?
I'm all right. It's a nice overcast Vancouver Island day.
Yeah, it is. We got the same issue here. Actually, it's raining here. I looked out this morning and I could hear the traffic. That's the thing when it rains. I'm living right on a main road, so I can hear basically the weather just by the sound of the tires driving.
Yeah. I luckily don't really have that problem anymore. Although I lived on a street that has no streetlights for years, and I saw that Hydro is putting in streetlights, and I'm not very happy about it.
well, maybe you can see where you're going. You don't need your night vision.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So let's get this party started here, if you want to call it that. But tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you kind of where you're from, or what you're doing.
oh, I've lived on Vancouver Island all my life. Who am I? I don't know. That's a good question. That's one of those deeper, thought-provoking questions when somebody asks you, "Who are you?" I
Yeah.
don't know. Just a guy, I guess. Just a guy. Um, I don't know. Like I said, lived on the island my whole life. It's kind of sheltered from the rest of the world, from the rest of the country. It's a very different place than, as I'm sure you know, it's a very different
Yep.
place than the rest of the country. Yeah, it's something. I definitely like it here. I like the shelter. I like the fact that it's a lot more laid back. It's a lot more nature-esque. You know, you don't have a lot of the same big city problems.
Mhm.
You know, every time I go to the city, I just like want to run away. This urge to get away from it. So
Well, for those that don't know, you live about an hour, maybe an hour and a bit away from me. So we kind of run in the same stomping grounds, and we've known each other now for a couple of years. And
Yeah.
one thing that attracted to me to you was your fascination with different types of gear, and you know, you seem to be really focused on a lot of the details that a lot of people miss.
yeah, I like gear. I mean, I like the fact that you go out. You know, one of your last videos where you went out with basically nothing, and I looked
Yeah.
at that and kind of went, "Oh man, gear is my thing, right? I like to have stuff. You know, it's a lot of the time. It doesn't have to be big stuff. It can be, you know, anything from just a knife. But I find that it's the game changer. It's the thing that separates us from the monkeys, right? You know, we have
Yeah.
tools and things and gadgets, and you know, you you know, ounces equal pounds. So I mean, you always want to be careful what you carry and how much. But at the same time, knowing what you're going to go do that day, you can kind of, you know, you can stack the deck in your favor for a good day to make, you know, with a couple of little toys, right?
Yeah. I was watching that fat electrician this morning on YouTube, little one of his latest videos, and he was talking about the two different types of outdoor people. There's like the Patagonia people who want to save the environment, and then there's like the Bass Pro Shop guys who want to eat the environment. I'm one of these guys that wants to eat the environment. I don't know about you. I kind of feel like you might be too.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I definitely
Mhm.
like to save things, you know, at the same, you know, try and keep things natural. I don't want to. I don't want to make a trail through everything I go through. You know, like I'm going through the bush. I like to literally like, oh, there's a trail. I'm going to walk that way because the trail's going that way.
Right.
But at the same, try not to step on the squirrels, right?
Well, I remember one day we were at a barbecue and a little bird, remember that? A bird had fallen out of the tree. And
Yeah,
I got, you know, I it just brought a whole new level of respect for you, because I saw how you know, you present yourself as a, you know, as a tough, not a tough guy, but like, you know, a tough exterior or whatever. And then I just saw this nurturing side come out of you, and like, you know, basically drop what you were doing to help some poor baby bird that had fallen out of the nest or whatever. And, you know, and then a
yeah,
couple minutes later, the mama would come back and they were you know, it was just it's a good thing, right?
yeah. No, what's weird is like my wife makes fun of me. She calls me a Disney princess because for some reason animals just come to me. I've had hurt, like injured animals or, you know, different things, and somehow they just seem to find me. And I don't know why. It's super weird. I've got dozens and dozens of photos of me just holding random wild birds. Just don't get it. But yeah, I don't know if there's something about it, the innocence of other animals and things like that, that I just feel like I have to protect them when at the same time I enjoy hunting and some of them are delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if they weren't supposed to eat them, they wouldn't make them out of meat, right? That's what I was saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they eat each other, so I mean I'll try and save you if I can, but if you're tasty, I might eat you.
Well, yesterday, well, a couple weeks ago, a crow, I was on the live stream, a different one, and all of a sudden this rock falls down, and there's a crow sitting on the gutter, and he threw this rock at me, and it was this little polished heart-shaped rock. Right? I have a long relationship with the crows here. Anyways, I bought some peanuts on the weekend, and then yesterday I was sitting out there and I put some peanuts out for them. They love the peanuts in the shell, the unsalted ones. Anyways, I put
Yeah.
that out, come back about half an hour later, and there's a little Canada flag pin sitting on the railing right where I put the peanuts, a broken Canadian flag. And I thought, how
Wow.
significant, or how, like, that's just the image of Canada right now. It's just this Canada flag
Yeah.
pin that's
Yeah.
broken in half, and the crow had put it there for me. So I think birds are
That's
smarter than credit for.
well, and crows are amazing. The fact that you have a relationship like that with them speaks volumes for how you treat them. By the way,
It
they
does,
love
man.
they love dog food. By the way,
Yeah, that's what I buy sometimes in the winters, the kibble for them. Yeah.
yeah, it's good. It's got lots of good protein and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've seen lots of stories like that where it's like somebody leaves something out for some crows, and before you know it, you're exchanging gifts, and that they're very,
Hmm.
very intelligent. That's super cool.
I saw this one guy, and I think he was in Europe somewhere, but he had trained these crows to pick up money and bring him back money. So they'd always pick up, dollar bills or whatever, and bring him. I don't know
Yeah,
if it was real or not, but it sounded cool. You have some birds yourself, or you're a bird man.
yeah. I've got two little parrots.
Hmm.
I could go get one of them, but they're obnoxious little petulant children. But yeah, they're little parrots.
Hmm.
They're pretty
Cool.
cool.
So you were telling me the other day that you were attempting your bow drill skills again. How's that? Where you at with that?
I'm so close, man. I can't quite get it. I've been chasing friction fire for years. It's getting a combination of the right board and the right spindle and keeping on it. I was so close. I had a ton of black dust, tons of smoke. I just could not quite get the ember. I'm bound and determined. It's pissing me off.
It's one of those things that I like. For me, I was the same as you. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and I didn't know why, what happened. And then I just really started practicing. And I like the other day, I went to the beach with the grandson, and I just picked up, just a regular piece of wood off the beach, made a bow drill set, and I had an ember within 4 or 5 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, like this is. I don't know what happened between 2 months ago and today. Well, probably 20 holes, but you know, um, I think it's just one of those things you got to practice. And once you kind of get the angle down, I think angling your spindle's pretty important. Keeping so it pushes the dust out. There's
Okay.
all kinds of tips and tricks, and I don't know. I'm learning. I'm
Yeah,
learning too. So
that's going to be one of those things that I need to hang out with you one day and watch you do it and see if there's something subtle that I'm not doing right. Like you said, the angle, or I don't know. I
mhm,
thought maybe it was the material on my
could be,
board,
could
or
be.
a multitude of different things. I find that I'm a little impatient sometimes, and I'll make my bow, and it's like I really could have picked a better stick, and if I would have just picked a better stick to make my bow out of, I'd probably be more successful. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's funny. I met Greg Ovens this week, and I was just going down to shoot a video, and I start fires all the time. I consider myself to be pretty good at getting a fire going. And Greg was
Yeah,
standing there
same.
watching it, and I couldn't get the fucking thing going. It was like, oh man, like it was. I'm like, go away, Greg. Like this, I can't get this fire going. He's like, yeah, I do that all the time. I'll be like going to, teach a class or something, and then I can't do it. It's just the way it seems to work. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
think
I
there's
mean,
any guarantees. That's for sure.
well, and gear wise, I generally I'm carrying about 4 or 5 different ways to start a fire at any given moment. So it's
Hmm.
just that to me the bow drill is one of those things where I could, if I lost all my stuff and all I had was a bootlace, could I, and my knife, right? Could I make a fire still? And I like
Yeah.
the idea of, in the absence of all of my tools and my gear, can I still do something, right? And it bugs me to a point that I'm reliant upon the gear, although I don't really ever plan on going without it.
Well, you mentioned my video there, the overnight thing, and when I was getting out of my Jeep about to go in, I just had this sick feeling in my stomach, like it reminded me of skydiving, like that feeling where I probably shouldn't be jumping out of this airplane, but I got to trust the process, and that's how I was. I was like, fuck, I don't have my tarp, I don't have my axe, I don't have my saw, I don't have my emergency shelter, I don't have my fire starting pucks, I don't have any of that stuff. And it was actually quite a freeing experience to realize afterwards that, I really appreciate that gear that I have. And, it just makes me realize how important that stuff really is for comfort. And it's not necessarily
Yeah.
required, but it's definitely makes things a lot smoother. And I don't know, the security, like the fear. I know you talk about carrying firearms, and I don't have a firearms license, so I don't carry them. But I always see these Americans carrying like 45s or Glocks on their hip, and I'm thinking, oh God, that would be so nice to just have that security, like no matter what happens.
Yeah, no. So I wish that we could carry a sidearm. They're a heck of a lot lighter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some drawbacks with a sidearm, depending on what you're carrying. Obviously, a 500 Smith and Wesson certainly isn't lacking stopping power, but a 9mm versus a bear is probably not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
You can get sidearm license to carry in the wilderness in Canada, but it's very, very difficult. You basically you get a prospecting license.
Yeah.
I've not looked into it too much because I know the process is incredibly arduous and it's just not worth it to even pursue. But carrying a long rifle, I carry a 12 gauge shotgun,
Mm-hmm.
just because they're very diverse in terms of what you can do with all the different ammunition that you can load in it. My first choice is always deterrent. I don't want to kill anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt anything. So, the way that I load my shotgun is very specific to try and make sure that I don't have to hurt something. I can try and deter it first.
So what do you got first, two or bird shot or something, and then a slug, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are some other specialty ammo that you can get. They're called bear bangers. They're basically kind of like at Halloween and stuff, you can get air bombs.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an air bomb, but it's shot out of a 12 gauge. I don't have any of those. They're quite expensive, but basically if you shoot a birdshot round into the dirt, or at distance pepper something with a little bit of birdshot, it's probably going to deter it. But a mother bear with a cub is going to be protective. Not that I blame her, but at the same time, I don't want to be dinner. So, I'm usually with other people. I'm with my wife, or I'll go with you guys, you or other people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I want to be able to protect myself and protect my friends. And the last resort is deadly force. But at the same time, for now at least, we are still afforded the ability in Canada to carry a firearm in the wilderness for self-defense. So I do.
Yeah, I mean, and there's other options too, like signaling devices. What I always remember, having those 3 shots, always keeping those around, and not only protection from animals, but maybe other problems.
I mean, you certainly don't have to carry a firearm in terms of having some sort of, for instance, bears. You don't have to carry a firearm. There's bear bangers. They're like little throwable devices. There's other things. You can wear bells on your shoes. I just pepper spray, like bear spray. I personally I'm not a big fan of those, because I know at the end of the day that my shotgun's going to work. I'm not totally confident in things like pepper spray. For what it's
I'm not
worth.
either. I don't even carry my pepper spray. I mean, I just took it out of my Jeep. It was sitting in the little pocket behind my seat, and I was like, you know what? If my grandson grabs that, fuck it. I just got it out of there. I don't even need it, right? I've never, I'm 48 years old. I've never had a bear attack me, or I've been charged a couple of times, but it's only because of my own fault, right? Being too close, or walking up on bears on the river fishing. They don't even look at you. They don't even care usually. But there's always that one time where they do, you never know. I have been chased out of actually, that's not true. I did get chased out of my camp. Mama bear walked through. She wasn't aggressive. I saw she had a cub, and I just left, right? Got out of there.
And that's probably your number one defense, is to be aware. Self-awareness in the forest, is incredibly important. Looking, smell, sight, sound. You should never just be just wandering around. Being loud is good, but always being aware of what's going on. head on the shoulders, right? If you're nervous in a big city and you're always looking around, keeping yourself safe, you should be doing the same thing in the forest. Something like a cougar, they're not going to, most of the time, they're not going to come at you head on. They're going to attack you from the rear because that's what they do. If they don't attack deer head on, they go after them when they're not looking. So, being aware is your number one self-defense tool.
Yeah. I don't think you have a channel, do you?
I've got my kind of my meme channel, but not like an outdoorsy channel. I've got my No Quarter Corner kind of meme channel, but that's just
right.
the incoherent ramblings of a madman.
The Telegram one, yeah. And anybody who's not on aware, I have a Telegram group for this channel where I kind of just post links of other people and what I care about, and it's an open chat group. You're welcome to join it. It's the link for it's actually in my profile, and you might even get to see a link to Taco's channel in there too. So one thing I remember one thing that I got from you was my introduction to the Silky Gomboy 240, one of my favorite tools that I carry. And recently, I understand you acquired an addition to your toolbox. This guy's got to always long cock me. I get one, he gets a bigger one.
So initially, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, and this is actually super important, is that skills learned in the forest or gear or things like that, your best resource is your friends, is other people who've done and tried things. They can save you a lot of money in terms of what to buy, what not to buy, what's good, what's not, what works, what doesn't. So a friend of mine had said, hey, you got to try these silky saws. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of them. I was like, oh, they're, Japanese made, really high quality. And I saw him cut down a tree with it. And I was like, wow, like I've never seen a saw take down a tree like that. So went and bought one. So this is a Silky Gomboy. It's, what is it, 9.5 inch blade?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It's got a couple of different kind of settings for the blade. Great little saw, medium tooth. I just found that it wasn't, I was super happy with it, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I found that some of the things I tried to cut, anything over about a 6-inch diameter kind of log, it would pop out, and it just, it wasn't quite long enough. So you got to have the long one, right?
It's always the problem, isn't it? Well, you saw me break mine. I mean, I was following a 2-inch tree and it pinched and it clink. But I mean, I guess that could happen on,
and that can absolutely happen. But I was on Amazon because I'm a whore, and I fully admit it. And it had the Silky Big Boy on sale. So this one is a little bigger. It's 14 inches. And instead of having a medium tooth, it's got an extra large tooth. So I uploaded a video that you had seen, and I don't know what the type of wood is, but it was very dense. And it was, about that big around, and it just blazed right through it.
Yeah, I guess if you're processing firewood, I mean, I always see these guys with these trying not to swear, with these saws. And I'm thinking, man, you're putting so much work into sawing with that shitty saw. Like, these Silkies, that people who don't know about them, they don't know. It's night and day. It just melts through the wood.
So a few days ago, I went out with Paul, one of the other island guys, and we went out and we found the fourth cabin that I've found out in the woods. And we were like, oh, well, we should start a fire. So started looking there's a bunch of deadfall. There's like standing deadfall. And I found a cedar tree about 10 or so inches in diameter, maybe a foot.
Yep.
Pulled out this saw, and both of us were like, we were laughing as I was cutting this tree down because it just blazed through this thing faster than I've ever seen a saw go through a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, well, let's try this out. So he has a Fiskars saw. Fiskars is a pretty good brand. I mean, at the end of the day, my axe is a Fiskars, right? That they're, they're fantastic. It's a good brand. And I'm watching him. He's like, let's try. and he went to the same piece, and it was, the same 10 or so inch diameter, and I'm watching him struggle trying to get through it. And then I handed him the silky, and he just blazed through it. And it's like there's just no comparison. I don't promote a lot of products, but I mean, when I find one that's good, I'm definitely more than willing to say, hey, you want to save yourself some effort, get one of these. And they're about $120 depending on
Yeah, there you
if
go.
you catch them on sale. Yep. Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Beautiful
So
saw, man.
I actually learned something the other day, is that the handle color actually represents something in these saws. So
I think it's
yeah,
the teeth, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
So as you can see there, the yellow handle is the coarsest blade. The red handle is the next coarsest, and then I believe it's black, and then there might be another one. I think blue maybe after that.
I think there's the Outback one. I think that might.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the brown one signifies. I know that the other ones, that might be like a special edition.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm just trying to see what the teeth per inch are. Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on the wood you're cutting, I guess, because if you're doing some ripping, I don't do a lot of ripping, but I mean, you do once in a while. But I guess it depends. Like, one's better for wet wood versus dry wood and whatnot. I don't know. I would think the coarser tooth would be, harder to cut. Like, maybe that's a cross cut, more for cross cutting, like processing firewood and stuff. Whereas the Gomboy might be for finer detail cuts.
I definitely, the Gomboy with the black handle, I definitely noticed you look at the TPI, or the teeth per inch, and it is a lot tighter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see it on camera. Let's see if you can see it, just so everybody can kind of get an idea.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like twice as many teeth, man.
Yeah, but what I did find, so the wood that I've cut so far, and again, I don't know what the first one was. It was very dense. And then I cut the tree that we cut down, the deadfall tree that we cut down. I actually cut down two. One was cedar and one was fir.
Yeah.
And it just absolutely obliterated the cedar. So like the soft wood with the large teeth, it just drove itself right through it. Every single cut, you felt the thing, drop through an inch or more.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the harder it gets, the harder it's going to be to cut through. But I do definitely like the more aggressive tooth in that saw for sure.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the things that you got to understand about those silkies is they're called pole saws. And so here's like a Fiskars. This cuts both directions. And so when you first start using those silkies, you really have to adjust your technique, because it's, like I said, I broke my silky. I was so upset, man. I was almost in tears because my wife bought it for me for my birthday, and it was like, I don't know, a month old or whatever, and I broke the bloody blade. I couldn't believe how stupid I was to do that. But yeah, so they're called pole saws for a reason. Yeah.
Well, and that's where a lot of people, if you don't understand what a pole saw is, it only cuts on the draw. So as you pull the saw back towards you, that's the cutting stroke. As you push forward, that saw is not doing anything. So Jason's saw will push cut and pull cut, where the silky is only a pull cut.
But the reason why it's better on just a pull cut, I guess they can profile the tooth differently so that it can be more aggressive. Like, I don't really understand why a pull saw, like only cutting one way, would be necessarily better. But the one thing I've noticed about the silky is it does come up. Like, you will get, if you're cutting wet wood, it will, you really got to make sure the blade's kept clean, the teeth are clean. I've even heard guys are putting oil on their blades when they're making big cuts like that. They'll squirt a little bit of kerosene or oil on their blade to keep it lubricated through the cut. But I mean, I very rarely cut anything over a couple inches. I'm just too lazy. We got a chainsaw for that.
See, no, I mean, to me that comes back to ounces as pounds. I'm like, when I'm walking, if I'm just in a camp or whatever, and my truck's right there, if I had a chainsaw, why would I burn Cheerios when I can burn gas?
Yep.
But Yeah, I mean, like the other day when we went out, we hiked off into the middle of the forest. No trails, no nothing. There's like little streams running everywhere, and it's like, yeah, hauling a chainsaw through that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. I don't take my chainsaw with bikes either, but uh, with that area that you're in, like I think I know where you're kind of talking about. There is a lot of elk are in that area. Do you
Yeah.
ever find any elk sheds out there?
I've never been lucky enough to find. I mean, I found some deer sheds before. I've never been
Yeah.
lucky enough to find an elk shed. Um, we went out by Chemainus, BC, a couple of weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago, with my wife on her birthday, and we just followed this old little skid road. It was probably like 80 years old because it was pretty much gone.
Yeah.
And we were walking, and I looked up, and like 30 feet down the path, we're in a pretty dark forest, and like 30 feet down the path was a cow elk. And we both looked at each other, and as soon as our eyes locked, she turned around and started to go. But there was there's at least 3 or 4 that I saw as they turned around and went the other way. But I want to go back up there and start looking for some sheds because it's that time of year.
Yeah, it is before it gets too green, really, because as soon as it starts getting greening up, it's harder and harder to find them.
Yeah.
I found one time. It was like just one side, but I didn't pack it out. It was kind of degraded, and I didn't pack it out. But I've always wanted to. I see these people with these beautiful racks they find out there, and I want to make a. I got to order a new ferro rod. And I want to make an elk or an antler handle for it. So
Oh, that'd be nice.
yeah, I don't know. I just there's something about creating your own tools that interests me. I want to do a bunch of things. I want to try some clay work too, like making some pottery, all over a fire sort of thing. Just little life things. You think about if the world ended today, if shit hits the fan today, and I was by myself and I had to make do with what I have or what I could make. That's one skill that and basket making and pottery. I think are two things that would be valuable if you were by yourself. Like learning how to even make your own clothes. I know it sounds crazy, but
Yeah, no, some primitive weaving. Like I saw you made like a fish basket the other day.
yeah,
That's something I've never really tried. Something that would be useful. I mean, we've got a lot of good wood here for things like cedar. I mean, you can
yeah.
make so much with a cedar.
Well, you look at
It,
the indigenous, right? Like they used to make the baskets and even their clothing they would make right out of the cedar bark. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You can, and it's easy to weave, and it's nice and malleable. It's got so many uses to it. The inside of the bark, you scrape it right, you can get some really good fibrous tinder.
Yeah. I just learned that recently.
Yeah, you just go and you just kind of scrape the inside, and you get that. It's almost
Yeah, it's like fluff.
cloth. It's like fluff, yeah, and it'll
Yeah.
take a spark really, really well,
I also
especially if you
try.
find a really big tree.
Yeah, no, it's quick too. Like I thought it would take a bit of effort, but I just used the back and like the spine of my knife, and I had a
Yep.
pile like this in a couple minutes, right? So, and it takes a spark if from their ferro rod. So
That's
yeah,
probably my favorite way to start a fire. This fire that I started the other day, it were like literally in between a couple of rivers and this muddy. It wasn't muddy, but it was like spongy,
yeah,
wet ground. And yeah, I still started it with ferro rod.
you know, that's it's not by luck, that you did that. And I really I think in the last couple of years that I've been doing this, I've really tried to explain that to people is that if you really go out and practice these things on a regular basis, your will develop to a point where you're going to be far more flexible and able to go out and wherever
Yeah,
you are. Like if you're in a muddy spot, like a river or whatever, you're going to be able to find tinder. And I think a lot of people don't put any value on that. They, maybe they're just used to starting their fire with, 5 gallons of gas and then some newspaper.
yeah,
I guess that's another thing you could use a shotgun for is starting a fire. If you had to, you could use one of the
yeah.
bullets for tinder, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
plastic.
you could absolutely take a shell apart. If you've got a ferro rod, you could take a shell apart. I'd throw a couple sparks into the powder. You definitely get a fire going with that. But it's all about prep. if we're starting a fire or something like that in the bush, it's all about prep. If you get a bunch of little tinder and you get that ready and you shower some sparks and you get it going, but you don't have anything to feed that fire, you're toast.
Yeah.
It'll go out, and then what? The fire is not going to wait for you. So what you to be successful, my tip would certainly be, go out, as you're walking, look for resources.
Yeah, put them in your pocket.
Yep, always keep an eye out. I mean, you're not necessarily going to find something later on. If you see something good, I mean, don't be hauling logs on your shoulder or anything, but if you see a good piece of tinder, something like that, put it in your pocket, keep going.
It's funny. We went out on the weekend. Jen got the Jeep. She doesn't ride in it very often, but she gets in the Jeep, and on the floor in the front seat, passenger seat, I had a big pile of grass that I picked last week. And she's like, "Why do you have grass in your Jeep?" I'm like, "Oh, it's for tomorrow's fire." And she didn't really get it, but yeah, I always got shivering.
That old man's beard, I don't know what its real name is called. It's that green.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Kind of looks like a beard. That stuff's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a little just sometimes it can be wet and it doesn't want to take a spark, but try and find the stuff that's sitting in that beam of sunlight that's dried out a little bit. And,
yeah, underneath a branch or something. Yeah. There's so many, and another thing I was really impressed with was the punk wood, like for a friction fire, for getting an ember to flame. Like there's different kinds of fire. There's friction fires, and then there's spark fires. And spark fires, you're essentially doing the same thing as a friction fire, but it's a lot quicker in the sense that your spark is going to be 2,000 degrees or 2,500 degrees, but you take that ember from just the tiniest little baby in your hand, and then you put some of that punk wood on it, and it's like, holy shit! It's now, and I got a cigar-sized cherry in my hand, and I can make that into a flame much easier. I really enjoy making fire, like bringing it to life.
Like you said, it's like a baby. It's like you got to nurture this little thing. You've got to prepare and have everything all ready. And once you do, and you know how to do it, you can take, like you said, that tiny little ember, you throw that spark, you get that one little ember, and from there you can turn that into a, roaring fire.
What a skill to have, though, eh? Like, imagine going to a camp, camping with your buddies, and you like start weaving a piece of grass into a string, and then you cut a bow, and then you cut a drill, and then you cut a board, and 10 minutes later you got a fire going, and everybody's like, holy shit. Like, it's not only impressive to yourself, but other people are just like, holy shit, I want to learn that too. Like, I can't believe you just did that in front of me.
Well, and that point of learning and teaching, I really enjoy that. I like to learn stuff from other people, and I like to teach other people too, because these types of skills aren't skills that, I mean, yeah, you can go and look up a YouTube video or read a book or whatever, but are you going to learn that as well as when I sit beside you and you're teaching me how to tie a knot and I'm watching you do it? I tried to tie a knot from a YouTube tutorial, and I got it eventually, but it was a pain in the butt. Whereas you whether it's me for fire or you, whatever it is, somebody could have that tip and just be like, no, do this, you use your knuckle to hold that, or do that this way. And it just makes it exponentially easier. And
well, even with the Bojo fire, like I had Owen on Life's a Hobby a couple weeks ago, and he was wearing bare feet when he was holding his fireboard with his foot. And I'm like, holy, because my boot would rock the board. So I'd have dust building up and my boot would move and the board would rock. And I took my boot off and used my bare foot, my sock actually, but used my foot. And I was like, holy shit, I could almost like having an extra hand. And just that tip of taking my boot off. Yeah. I don't do it all the time, but if I'm having problems holding the board down, whether it's small or not quite flat, just that tip, that just made a difference. That helped. That got me a fire, right?
And well, it's that extra dexterity, and I mean, again, that's one of those things. We evolved as tribes of people, learning from each other, telling stories, sitting around the fire. Fire is incredibly important, and sharing stories and sharing knowledge, I think is probably one of the best things that we can do for the outdoor community is to, share those types of knowledge. Yeah.
Dan just brought up another point there, and I got that from you as well. That's one of the things I learned from you. I mean, I was always aware of fat wood, but I wasn't really Because I remember one day you're like, oh, did you find the secret to finding fatwood yet? And you had me thinking and thinking. I'm thinking like some big, fancy plan of how to find fatwood. And then started thinking about it. I know how to find fatwood. It's fucking everywhere. I mean, you just got to look for the
Yeah.
stumps with the pokies, right? And
Yeah.
ever since you told me that one little thing, boom, that in my head now forever. And I've taught many people. I've taught my kids that, my friends that, how to find this stuff. I made videos about it. And that all came from you, just from that, I don't know, organic interaction we had that one day about it, about fatwood of all things, right?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with what fatwood is, it's a sap impregnated piece of wood. So within the tree, you're going to find a core kind of thing. Oh, you've got a piece? Beauty.
It's in my fire kit. It's not sitting on the table
Okay.
here.
I might have some.
I got one right here. It's a not
You
very
got
good
one?
example.
Okay.
It's not a very good example, but yeah, you can't really see it. It's basically impregnated. And one thing I noticed, a really easy way to determine whether it is when you break it a bit, you can smell the pitch in it, and it's
Yeah.
quite easy
And
once you know how to find it.
That there's a color, a smell, a texture. It's certainly by weight. If you pick up a piece, it's like super heavy.
Petrified. Yeah.
And it's basically like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like gasoline wood. It's that pitch is super, super, super flammable, and it burns for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That right
Whole jar
there,
of that. You could probably light 1,000 fires with this, and man, does it smell good.
And it's funny because I keep so I've got a couple little pouches that I keep. I have 2 different pouches that I keep in my pack, and they have a multitude of. So as you can see in this one, it's got a bunch of stuff in it. Right. So in this one here, I've got knife sharpener, I've got a sewing kit, I've got flashlights, I've got different ways to start a fire, a Sharpie, but one of the things that I have in there is a little baggie of fatwood.
Yeah.
And just some little shavings. I mean, this came off of a piece that I found that was like, huge, and I just processed that down into a bunch of little bits, and I keep that in my bag because if I do have trouble starting a fire or finding tinder, I can go back to that as a default, as something that I can rely on if I'm struggling with the other resources around me. And I try not to use that stuff because I consider it cheating. But I mean, to each their own, right? I mean, I carry matches. I carry a little torch lighter.
Listen, man, in a survival situation, there's no such thing as cheating, right? Like, you're there to survive. There's one point, one goal, and that's to make it to the next day. So if having a little bit of fatwood shavings in your pocket makes that a difference, then, I don't really think that's cheating. I can see what you're saying. I know what you mean by saying cheating, but it's like going to a campsite and using your ferro rod rather than your Bic lighter. Like, I just get pleasure out of using it.
I like the challenge. I mean, I carry a candle, just one little tea light. They're usually good for a couple hours. But again, if you're having trouble, everything's super wet. You can't keep a piece going long enough to get your fire going. Candle can save your butt. There's a lot of different little things that you can carry with you that weigh essentially nothing. Ounces equal pounds. So I mean, you carry too much little stuff, and before you know it, you've got pounds and pounds of stuff. But I damaged the edge on my knife. This weighs, I don't know, a couple ounces maybe. It's not the greatest sharpener, but it'll re-edge your knife if you need be. Garbage bags, people carry garbage bags. There's so many little pieces, and it doesn't have to be expensive.
No, I mean, like, even like something as simple. When you get old, you need to be able to see something well. I have a little pair of reading glasses that just fold. They're just dollar store reading glasses, right? But they fold up into this, and then I can't see very. I can say I'm trying to thread a needle or something. And it's really hard for me, or a fishing hook. So I have a pair of these. I have a couple pairs of these, and I just leave them in my possibles bag. Like, I carry a little bag, and little things. Gorilla tape, a little roll of Gorilla tape's another good addition to your bag too. I find
Yeah.
that to be really handy. And it's a fire
Yeah,
tinder too. It burns.
I've got probably about 3 feet or so wrapped around a Bic lighter that I carry in the front pouch of my bag.
Yeah, just like this one right here.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, same kind of thing. And I mean, all these little things just kind of set you up to have a good day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I would never recommend carrying everything all the time, but there are some essentials that you can carry that will make your life a lot better, right? I mean, you could make your own spoon, but if you just carry some silverware with you, you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even just a fork. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've heard from people. It's like, oh, I went to go eat something in the forest and I didn't have a fork, and it's like, yeah, and now you're trying to eat beef stew like an animal, right?
Yeah.
Creature comforts, little things.
Little things, for sure, man.
Another big one, like, you don't have to carry a bunch of food with you, but if you're out somewhere that you've never been, you're out, far from your vehicle or far from civilization, and you get hurt, you might end up finding that you need something to eat or something to drink or something like that.
Yeah.
Carrying just a little pouch of food. So in this, I've got, can of tuna. I've got a little bag of beef jerky, good high protein. I've got a couple protein bars and then a couple instant coffees.
Yeah.
When you're cold and wet, one of the biggest morale boosters that mentally can save you is just a hot cup of coffee, man. It's a game changer when you're I'm cold and wet and everything else. That hot cup of coffee is can change your life.
So are you familiar with Morris Kachansky? The bush
I know. Yeah, I know who he is. I'm not super familiar.
So his thing is, one of the things he always says, or always said, he's dead now, but one of the things he always said was, when you get lost and you realize that you're lost, the first thing you need to do is stop, build a fire, and have a cup of tea or even some hot water, because just doing that, you're building a fire, so you're going to get a little warm. 2, you're stopping, you're not panicking, you're allowing yourself the privilege of thinking clearly, calms your heart rate down, it just gets you set up, and then you can formulate a plan. But like you said, that just having that cup of coffee or that cup of tea, or even the other day when I was out with nothing, I just had boiled hot water out of the creek, and it was tasted like my coffee cup. It had a bit of seasoning in it, but that was enough just to like, okay, that's something to drink, right? Because you don't know, man, when you're out there, water's one of the hardest things to get. It's raining everywhere here, it's always wet, but drinking water is hard to come by sometimes.
Something that exactly, something that's clean, because for what it's worth, if you get giardia or cryptosporidium or one of these other waterborne illnesses, over the long haul, it's going to over the long haul. But if you're just a couple of days out, it's kind of the idea. If you get shot, you see this in movies all the time. Somebody gets shot, pack dirt in the wound.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, she looked at me. She's like, "Why would you pack dirt in the wound? You're going to get an infection." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're going to bleed to death before you get an infection if you don't do something about the wound. So you pack dirt in it, and then hope that you can get out, and get help before you get the infection." But again, because I'm a whore for gear. Water is super important. 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water. So little inline water filter, you can hook this into your bag, like into a water bladder that you could just fill from the creek. It's like a life straw, but this one's back flushable, so you can wash it. And
that's a nice option. That's a nice option to be able to back flush it. I don't know. I've never used my life straw, to be honest. I had one for years. I've never used it, but a simple item like a life straw or a filter like that is critical, because you can't. What if you don't have a pot to boil water in? There's ways. You can hollow out a log and put hot rocks in there, but that's not the best, most efficient use. Yeah.
I don't like those options. So to
No, me
me,
neither.
one of these Sawyer water filters, they actually come with a little bag. I just have it all wrapped up in
Yeah.
one. So like you take it, it'll take a little bag. It'll work with a standard pop bottle as well. So you can just take the filter. I don't know if you can see it, but inside
Oh
here
yeah, threads.
there's threads in there, so that'll thread directly on. If you're walking, you see a empty pop bottle of somebody that they've thrown it on the ground. Normally, I'd admonish the person for littering, but you could be their litter could save your life. You turn around and screw that on, and you've got filtered drinking water.
I also carry aqua tabs too. They're not the best, but that's another
Yeah.
option that's easy to keep in your kit.
Yeah, exactly. Keep if you ever get a prescription for something, you get a pill container or whatever. I've got some of
Yeah.
those aqua tabs. They come in like a little glass vial. You
So
could use liquid bleach.
yeah. Well, in my home kit, my home water purification kit, I do have. I think I got 5 gallons of bleach sitting on the shelf there, and bleach is something that people don't like to think is good, but it can really help you. But hey, this is a good segue to, because I know you're really big on first aid and the wilderness first aid, as far as you're always prepared. I've
Yeah.
really witnessed that part of you. Let's talk about that a bit.
So, for those that don't know me, I have a super, super rare autoimmune condition. So I have to take blood thinners. So if I get a cut, normally like with somebody, like with you, you get a cut, you put pressure on it 2 or 3 minutes, it'll stop bleeding. With me, if I get a cut and it's bad enough, it can quite literally bleed for days. I have to keep constant pressure on it. So it's led me down a path of having to be resourceful for first aid.
Can you tilt your camera down a bit so we can see what you're doing on your
Yeah.
desk there? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to work from my laptop. It's kind of, I wish I had an external camera there, but so this is extensive. This is far beyond what most people need. But I've got anything from, there's always going to be basics of what you're going to want. You're going to want some good trauma shears, ones that can cut through zippers and stuff like that. So, I mean, like that's something crucial for everybody. But then I can get into things like clotting powders and things like that you can use to stop bleeding. Different types of compression bandages. So people have seen things like these are they're referred to as like Israeli bandage or Oleas, OLEAS bandages. They're generally used in the military, usually for larger type wounds. I mean, funny enough, because I go hiking with ladies, I actually carry a couple of tampons in there because you never know, right?
Yeah.
So the other ones too, not everybody necessarily will have to ever go this far, but it's a good skill, is suturing. Yeah. This
I've
one
had a few cuts.
This one makes people cringe. Different, you can have, different suture monofilaments, and have like a whole suture kit with, things like razor blades as I throw them around, razor blades and stuff like that to be able to properly debride an injury. Debriding is basically taking all the mushy damage stuff away from the edge, and then knowing how to actually do a suture, even just a basic suture, just to close a wound. Things as simple as sterile saline, just to flush out a wound. You can get a lot of this stuff like Shoppers Drug Mart or London Drugs. A lot of them will carry things like this. Silver alginate bandages.
Right.
Silver. Sorry?
Is that an antiseptic?
Yeah, so silver has natural antibacterial properties to it. So these silver alginate bandages they use for people who have had like severe burns, and it helps keep the burn from getting infected. But that's going to help you, regardless whether you have a burn, to keep a wound from getting infected. Alcohol, tape, a little syringe to flush out wounds, safety pins. There's so much in terms of what you can use. These afterbite pens.
Yeah, they're the best.
So, funny enough, if you buy one and it's empty, don't buy another one. Just fill it with ammonia, because all it is ammonia. That's all it is. But I mean, those afterbite pens, man, if you like, mosquitoes didn't used to really like me all that much, but once I started taking blood thinners, man, it's like they knew. It's like a dinner bell.
Easy drink.
So I get right. I get bit all to hell now, so I carry those with me. And you can go as far as you want to go with this. I mean, I've got chest seals, so
sucking chest wounds. Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, it's like, I guess usually people look at it like, oh, I got shot, I'm gonna need this. Don't always look at it that way. What if you're walking along a fallen log, has a bunch of branches broken off? Yeah. One of those branches breaks and there's a little stump sticking up, and you trip and fall and you land chest first on that. You now have a sucking chest wound.
My friend's dad got a stick, about a 4-inch stick, right up his asshole. He slipped on a log and it slid down. It went right into his ass, tore his asshole up. Oh, he was in bad shape, man. And it was like literally a 3-inch or 4-inch long nub of a stick that somebody cut off at an angle. It was just razor sharp. Oh, it ruined him, man.
Yeah. And just having something to dress the wound, clean it up, gauze, triangle bandages. There's
splints,
a tourniquet. I have 2 or 3 tourniquets.
Yeah, that's important.
A whistle. A whistle is really important. Something to make noise. Some basic drugs.
Yeah.
People look at that kind of funny, but take some Tylenol. Take some. Another good one that everybody should carry with them is something like Sudafed or Benadryl.
Right.
Some sort of
allergies.
Some sort of antihistamine. You come in contact with something in the forest and you won't necessarily know what it is. But if you're swelling up and you're in hives and you're tearing at your skin, an antihistamine is like a broad spectrum antibiotic. It's going to work for a lot of different things. And it could be the difference between chewing a really uncomfortable day. Take or a bee sting. People don't intend on getting stung by a bee, but
no, they're nasty when you get them, like especially if you get 100 of them, right?
Yeah, a little bottle of alcohol goes a long way. You can use this in a pinch to start a fire, right? If you needed to, take some cotton from your gauze, take some alcohol. It doesn't, some toothpicks, floss.
Yep. Yeah.
It's once I started going down the rabbit hole and started, kind of looking like, what could I use? What do I need? What potentially could I encounter? Before you know it, you've got a pretty substantial kit. Now, with that said, like I said, that's my extreme kit. Depending on what I'm doing, that's my big kit.
That's your overnight kit. That's your overnight kit, sort of, isn't it?
Yeah. That's either that or I'm going really far out there. And where is it? There it is. Oh, another one. If you don't have a right in the rain, fuck you.
Yep, exactly. It's critical, man, to have a notebook and a pen, because if you're putting a tourniquet on you, I mean, I want to know what time I put it on, or where I applied it, and even having something to mark on their head or their face. Okay, 8:15, this was applied. This is important information, man.
Yeah, absolutely is. But in the absence of a big kit, there's no reason that everybody can't carry a little boo-boo kit.
Yeah.
I made one of these for my wife too. They're fantastic. Just a little tin, little Altoids tin or whatever, couple of Band-Aids, couple of alcohol wipes.
Mhm.
Funny enough, I actually threw a couple of sutures in there just because. And these, I don't know if you've ever seen these. They're a little.
Oh, the
They look like a
towel.
mint. Yeah, it looks like a mint.
Paul
but it's
gave me one of those.
Yeah, but it's a towel.
They're
And
amazing,
again,
actually.
well, it's very much like the coffee thing. When you're dirty and you're in the bush and you're like, you're filthy, you're by the fire, you got ashes on you or mud or whatever. Cleaning some hygiene feels so nice to wash your face.
100%. You get that dust, when you're in the forest and it's summertime and you just get all that wood dust on your face and it's just itchy, or you got just dirt, like, needles and nettles and shit all over your arms. And it's nice just to have a cold, wet cloth to just,
and those are
you get
super nice for that.
Yeah, you get shit on your fingers and you got to do something. I mean, nobody wants to admit they do it, but once in a while the finger slips, and it's good to have a way to clean yourself.
Yep. It's funny enough that you say that, because that's one of the other things. Right in the front pouch, super accessible. Again, I have a wife, so she pees in the bush and she can't just shake it off like we do. But I carry a little pouch that's got some little cleaning wipes, a little bit of toilet paper, a couple of wet wipes.
Yeah.
Some of those little things that they weigh almost nothing, but they make such a difference to the comfort of your life.
So one of the things that with my wife, she's type 1 diabetic. So when we go out, I carry, a glucose inhaler for her. And she's like, well, why would you carry it? Shouldn't I carry it? I said, if we get to the point where you're so low in your blood sugar, you're not going to be able to, use it. I'm going to be the one that's going to have to give it to you, right? Apply it to you. So
a glucose inhaler.
Yeah, because sometimes when they're so low, they can't chew or swallow because they're so fucked up. Like my wife gets so bad sometimes. So you got to it goes right up her nose and you just squeeze it and it gives her the glucose shot. And
that is cool. I was not aware of those. They're super
expensive,
cool.
Man. It's about $100 for the glucose thing. It's one use, and it's about $100 for it, but it's worth it.
So it's like one of those Narcan deals, but it's like an aerosolized glucose, like sugar.
Yeah, it just shoots it right up their nose. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. That's amazing. And I suppose that's a really good point too that you made there. That that certain people, whether it's myself or your wife, have medical needs, and you really, if you're going out with people, know what talk to each other. Know what other people's medical needs are. So if something happens and somebody, I'm not, but I'm allergic to Jason. I'm allergic to bees, right? I get stung by bees. You're aware, that's serious if that happens. Now, granted, if, those types of people should be carrying an EpiPen.
Well, I mean, when I was a first aid attendant, so I was a level 3 first aid attendant in the camp that I was at, and I made a point of going around and asking, because I was working with a lot of older men, like they're in their 50s and 60s, and I'd say, what are you taking for medication? And they were kind of like, well, it's none of your business. No, I want to know if you're taking blood thinners. I want to know if you're on statins. I want to know, because these are all critical. If you're laying in your cab of your loader and I'm like, what's wrong with Norm? Well, Norm's blood sugar's at 0.2, right? And he's dying. So I'm not gonna, or if he's super high glucose, I'm not gonna pour orange juice down his throat, because that's gonna make it worse, right? So you really got to know and it's not possible all the time, but when you're talking about someone like your wife or your kids or your hiking partner, I want to know that stuff, right? And I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, is like, who am I with, really? Dan's asking about this glucagon stuff, and this is here. I'll share this here. It's expensive though, and it's a one-time use. It's called Buck Sweemy. And
what's the shelf life? What's the shelf life like?
I think it's 1 year. I think it's 1 year. Yeah, it's not very long.
That's something that I don't take exception to. That's maybe the wrong wording. But I have a problem spending a lot on something that that I'm probably not going to need. No, I mean, I guess it's a little different if we're talking like an EpiPen, right? You're severely allergic. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it kind of idea. But if something's super expensive, I'm a little hesitant on something that's super expensive that doesn't have a good shelf life. But again, knowing
No,
what
I
you
know.
need,
Well, even EpiPens, man, they're expensive, and I didn't
I
even
think they're like
realize I have.
$300.
Yeah, I don't know if they're even more than that. They're not cheap, and they're so critical for people to have it, require it. Like my friend's kid was definitely allergic to peanuts, and like just even
Yep.
being around peanut butter, right? He would. So, of course, when you're going camping with a group, there's always one asshole who's got to have peanut butter sandwiches, and it's like,
Yep.
oh man, it's just the EpiPen, and they'd expire. Like they had a shelf life, and it's like, oh, that's ridiculous expensive, man.
But what's the alternative? Death.
Right.
Nobody wants to die, especially over something stupid like a peanut.
Especially when it's your kid, right? It's worth it then. Yeah.
Yeah. But little things, I also carry, we're talking the towels. I carry microfiber towel.
Yeah.
Whether it's cleaning your glasses, which could be, or cleaning an optic. I carry either binoculars or a spotting scope or like a rangefinder.
Yeah.
Cleaning your glasses, cleaning your optics, and things like that can be crucial. But again, just to wipe your face, or get it. It's hot out. Get that microfiber cloth wet, put it over your neck.
Yeah. I got a shmog,
whether
and I think that's a good option, is having a shmog, because it's just big. You can use it for a lot of different things too, right? But yeah, I like the idea of the microfiber.
The schmog is actually a great one, because that kind of covers, or can cover, a couple of bases. If you know how to make a primitive water filter, for example.
Hmm.
Primitive water filter, for people who don't know how to make one, you can look this up. You'll take gravel, and then sand, and then charcoal, and you basically run your water through that, and the gravel's going to pick up the big stuff, the sand's going to take up the little stuff, and the charcoal will start to remove things like bacteria and things like that. That's something that, as much as this sounds gross, and you probably don't want to do this, I definitely, after a long day of hiking, wouldn't want to do this, but take your sock, right?
Mm-hmm. Or your t-shirt or whatever, yeah.
Or t-shirt, schmog, all these things. You can make a primitive water filter.
One thing I like the schmog for is collecting my tinder. Like when I'm cutting my tinder, my fines with my knife, rather than having them go all over the place, you can kind of keep them contained and safe from the water or whatever. Like you can cover it up, or
you could turn it into a little pouch. Carry your stuff. I mean, careful if you put a bunch of fines in there and then you turn around and try and wear it as a mask and inhale all that shit. But
yeah.
But I just kind of thought of that as you said. I was like, oh, that might not be good, but I guess it depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also use it as a signaling device. Like I see a lot of guys have like bright orange schmogs, and that's an actual signaling device in their kit that they can use as a flag. Yeah.
Another good one. I don't know if you can see it. No, I don't think you can see it from there. So I've got a couple of these in my med kit. If it's dark out, and you're trying to find blood, a blue light stick will help you find blood.
Yeah.
Like
knock
one
on
of these
deer or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that you could do with these is, if you've got a bit of paracord, you can see that there's the hole on here. And you crack one of these open, you put paracord on here, and you put about 3 feet of cord on it. And you whip it in the air like a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is so visible. It is crazy, crazy visible at night to see one of these things. Yeah. And if you got it whipping around, turn this one spot of light into this large area.
Yeah.
And, movement, a mirror is another one too. Like most compasses will have a mirror on them, and have that signaling mirror.
Yeah.
For those who've never seen it, the flash from a signaling mirror, you'd think, oh, they're never going to see me. No, you can see the flash from a signaling mirror like 20 kilometers away. No problem.
I see it all the time. I sit on my deck, I look up on the mountain, and I'll see trucks drive by, and you'll see a glint of their mirror, as they drive by. Yep. You won't see the truck. The truck's blended right in, but you'll just, once you see the flash of the mirror, oh, there's the truck, right?
Yeah. Like glint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's again, little things that people don't think about. And if you know people who are familiar with this, talk to those people, and if you're interested, of course, to try and expand what gear it is. And a lot of these things, they don't have to be expensive. You don't have to go out and buy the $700 jacket or whatever. There's options that are less. There's things in kit that you can buy that's only a few bucks that'll make your life a lot easier, or keep you comfortable.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good thing to talk about. Is I see a lot of people, less experienced people, frequently in the forest, and they're wearing things like cotton socks or polyester socks, and they're wearing like blue jeans, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like, even just what I'm wearing now wouldn't be the greatest in the forest, but but for the most part, I mean, I have a merino base layer that this is the ultimate protection as far as I'm concerned. I almost wear it year round, even in the summer. It's just protects me so well. I noticed you got camo on. That must be good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff's pretty decent. It's camo, but it's also this is different materials. So like the body part is kind of like a softer cotton polyester blend.
Yeah.
But it's got heavier shoulders on it that are more of like canvasy.
Right.
This material's not great, but it's also not meant to be your main layer. If you're going to go out somewhere raining, a good Gore-Tex layer. You don't have to have something that's super warm and dry. You can layering is probably your best option all the time. If you start to get you get too warm, you take off one layer, put your Gore-Tex shell back on.
Well, those are Mylar blankets. Trevor's asking. Those are Mylar blankets. Yeah, that's another critical thing you could put in your kit too. Is a Mylar blanket, and it's kind of a misnomer because they're not really blankets, but they if you just had a Mylar blanket and you put it on you and you laid down in the woods, you'd probably freeze to death pretty quick. But that being said, if you allow it to have an air barrier, like when we were doing our cave rescue training, what we would actually do is we would take those blankets and we'd crumple them into balls and stuff them inside the person's cave suit. And just that extra layer of air inside would help them. But the problem with those Mylar things is they keep you wet. They're not impermeable. So there's a way to use them properly, and sometimes they can be detrimental, but great for keeping a patient warm.
I've got one in here somewhere. I was going to show you, but
yeah, I got big ones. I bought some big ones from the dollar store. They're actually like 8 feet by 8 feet, I think. And
oh wow,
they were like $2, but I used one when I did. I went camping with Paul, and we did a Morris Kachansky super shelter with it, using a painter's drop cloth and the Mylar blanket. And we, it was November and it was 30 degrees inside this little plastic bag. So couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Now, was it a Mylar blanket or did you have a bivvy bag?
It was a blanket it was a bivvy that I cut into a blanket. I just kind of opened it up. Yeah. That was actually one of the orange ones. That I can't remember was it Saul? Yeah, I think it's Saul brand. It's called. I don't know. It was a little bit more expensive than the cheap ones, but
yeah. So that one was probably a bivvy bag, and people will buy those and put them in their packs and say, "Oh, I'm good. I got this bivvy bag," and they're all right, but they're more like you said, with some airspace. They're not going to keep you warm. You're keeping yourself warm. They're just keeping the heat in.
Yeah. And the moisture too. Don't forget. That's one thing you got to know about those, because you're sweating all the time, and you wrap yourself up tight in one of those, go see how wet you are in an hour. You'll be soaked, right?
Yeah. And that's one of those, to me, you kind of use something like that in the extreme worst case scenario. I have to stop for the night. I can't keep going. I'm lost. I got to keep warmer. I'm going to die. I can't start a fire. I'm going to crawl inside this thing. Because like you said, you're going to get soaking wet. And being soaking wet in the bush is the worst thing.
It is.
It leads to so many things.
Those Mylar blankets could be used as a signal as well. A signaling device as well too. They can see it from the air easily. But but I've heard nightmares of people putting them inside their sleeping bag and thinking that that's helping them, and then waking up to like an absolutely soaked sleeping bag. And
Well, the other thing too is color. I mean, people love to wear camo, right? Oh, you can't see
Mhm.
me in the bush. Well, if something happens, you're kind of fucked because nobody can see you because you're wearing camo.
Well,
Um,
it's like all the gear that we buy is all camouflage or black and shit. That's why I always have like bright orange paracord on my, hatchet and my saw and stuff, so I can see it when it's not in my hand.
yeah, I actually laughed at that because one of my knives is green. It's the same knife as yours, the Morkanev,
Yeah.
and mine's green. And I saw yours, and I'm like, oh, it's so bright, it's orange. And then I'm like, wait a second, if I drop mine in the bushes and you drop yours in the bushes, who's going to find their knife? Probably not me.
Well, it's funny you say that because I had my first one was green and I lost it in about 2 weeks of having it, and that's when I bought the
So
orange
yeah,
one. Yeah, yeah,
and I
a
mean
great knife, man.
these are if you've ever gone. I don't know if you can actually see the name.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. These are a pretty inexpensive knife. They're an amazing bushcraft knife. That's something that everybody, I say you don't have to spend a ton on stuff. This is another example of you don't need to spend a ton of money on gear. This knife is about 30, what are they, 30, $35,
yeah,
$40,
30
depending on
bucks.
the
I think
model.
I just bought one for 30. Yeah.
Um, they're amazingly tough. If you go and look up Morkanil torture test, you see a guy who's literally taking this knife and stabbing it into the hood of a car. It's like this knife is for $30. That the grind that's on it, it's
The
a
Scandi,
fantastic knife.
yeah. And they're sharp, man.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're sharp right out of the box. Yeah.
And I mean, you can go and spend. There's all sorts of brands. I'm not even going to bother going through them. There's so many different brands. You could spend two, three, four, $500 on a knife, and you buy whatever you want. But I'm telling you, you can buy that $30 knife, and it's going to do you just fine.
I bought a custom grow. Is it Groman? Grow. He's a custom knife maker out of Nova Scotia. Groman, I think it's called. I bought a moose. It's called the Moose Hunter. And it's this beautiful big knife, handmade, rosewood handle, just a gorgeous knife. And I was butchering a deer, and I was cutting through a bone, and I rolled the edge, and like I totally destroyed the knife. And I'm thinking, man, that's like a couple $100 for that knife, and it's basically, I've almost ruined it. So I'm a big fan of the Moras, and I beat the shit out of mine. I baton through stuff. I
Yeah.
file as soon as I get it, I file the spine to 90 degrees so I can scrape with it. And yeah, for $25 or $30 or whatever, they're definitely worth it. And now I see you can get serrated ones too. I didn't even know they made them in serrated, but I guess that's
I
more
didn't
for like
know.
a yeah, it's more of like a fishing application, I think.
No,
Cutting
there
ropes and stuff.
are those are like I have that, and I have a SOG and a couple other knives that I carry. I think at
Mhm.
any given time, I've probably got 4, 5 knives on me at any point, anywhere like a little Swiss Army knife, all the way up to my Mora or different stuff. I usually don't carry one in my pocket because I don't like too much stuff in my pockets
Yeah, me neither.
when I'm
I like
walking.
to wear my knife right on my chest. That's where I've been most comfortable. It's always right there. I can see the sheath without having to lift my coat or,
Yeah,
reach behind me. I'm actually
my
looking at, yeah, I'm looking at that. It's a Victor Knox, I think Adventure Pro it's called. And it's a really nice knife. It's not that expensive. I think it's about $100. It's designed for bushcraft, but it's a really thin blade. And I'm worried that, batoning on that thing would be, I don't know, might break it.
and that's part of my beef with expensive knives. I want to find a good quality, like whether it be like always stainless, but like a 15N20 or a 1040 or something steel. Like this is just a SOG. It's like a $50 knife, but it's got things like a good thumb. It's got like a textured thumb spot on it.
What do they call those?
You know,
Grimps or something?
I don't remember.
I think that's what it is, Grimps or something. Yeah.
But to give you that good, that good grip, find a knife that's good for your hand size. Don't buy something where you're like trying to hold it like this. You're gonna fucking cut yourself. Sorry, I
Yeah. Yeah.
try not to
No,
swear.
it's okay. Yeah, it's
Um,
okay.
you're gonna cut yourself, and that sucks. So I mean, try and find something that's good for your hands. Go around and check out different knives. Find something that's gonna be good, stable.
Yeah, it
Um,
just fits these Moras though. They just fit my hand perfect. Like, I don't have small
yeah,
hands, but it fits my
no,
hand
either
well.
do I.
This is my wife's knife, and it fits her hand well too. So, you know,
Yep. Something with a decent uh, uh, sheath that's going to
yeah,
retain a knife. Like you had said, you like to carry yours, on you. My pack has a chest strap a lot too, and I
yeah,
carry it right here. So if I need it, I can just literally go to grab it, and it's right there.
mm,
It's whether it's just there's a branch in my way. If you're hiking and you're going through the bush and there's prickles or whatever, you can just grab your knife, a couple little chops, and there's something to
yeah,
be said for having a good knife with you all the time.
yeah. That's for sure.
That's a minimum. Like I'm going for a walk. I have no plans on a hike. I still have a knife all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I got a. It's like my little mini flashlight on my keychain. You know, I always have a flashlight that, for whatever reason I need one. I always have, my little O light with me, and I think
Yeah.
the biggest problem is keeping it charged, remembering to charge it.
That's where like the one that I have in my kit, uh it's one of the ones that's got the little grip pump on it. So it's like a
Yeah.
forever flashlight. Doesn't actually need any batteries at all.
Oh, I've never seen those.
No? Oh
I
yeah,
don't
I'll
think
get it.
so.
I'll get that back out. It's pretty cool actually. Again, something that's relatively cheap. Like it definitely wasn't expensive, but
So it's
it's
like a hand crank light.
yeah. So just a regular, it's just a flashlight.
Yeah.
But see if I can remember how to unlock it. There's a little unlock thing. But this pops up. Oh, there it is. Ta-da!
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah. Just a little
and it,
dynamo generator.
and it yeah, and I mean it's certainly not the greatest, but it doesn't require batteries, and it's one of those things that I always have a flashlight. Even though it's not great, I do have another flashlight that I generally carry. Just bought a new headlamp. You and I were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Just bought a new headlamp. That thing's actually really good. I really like that headlamp. I don't know where the hell I put it. Oh, there it is. Was it Princeton Tech?
Yeah, they're pretty
Just
good.
really, really nice and small. This one was nice because it defaults to red.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Instead
takes
of
two AAs or triple A's.
3.
Three.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, 3 AAAs. But then it's also got push and hold goes to white light, bright white, real bright. But the nice thing is it goes straight to red. So if you're in the bush and it's dark, your own personal night vision that you naturally have gets ruined by white light. So if you're in the dark and you don't want to ruin that natural night vision that you've got, having a headlamp that automatically defers to red is nice.
That is nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm still using my fucking 8-pound Petzl. This thing's got 600 lumens or something, but this isn't the kind of thing I would necessarily take on a hike, per se. This is more of a camp light for me. And then I default to my Pixel 3, but even just cheap headlamps, man, like even just having a couple of these Canadian Tire specials, that are they're just around. I keep a couple of those in my pack too. And, seems like people always seem to forget their headlamp.
I'll see if I can find it in my wife's pack here. She's got one that she had found back in the day. Yeah, she's got it right here. What brand is it? Just Woods, just one of those cheap Walmart or the Canadian Tire or whatever. But look how small this thing is. It's tiny.
Tiny, yeah.
It weighs nothing. It takes one of those CR, little flat CR 2023 batteries.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not super bright, but it's got a couple of brightness settings and a strobe.
But for camp chores, it's enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or it's dark and I'm trying to find the trailhead. I don't like to burden her with a lot of weight.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The other thing, and this one seems really dumb, but at the same time, again, it's comfort.
Yep. I don't know exactly what you got there. Yeah.
It's just a piece of foam. But man, when you want to sit down and everything is wet,
Yeah.
and the last thing anybody wants is a wet ass all day long. And a simple little piece of foam,
And it
sit
works
on
well
a
for
rock.
fanning your fire too, man. Like that's an awesome fire
Yeah.
fan. Yeah. Yeah. I got a folding one that I use. It's upstairs, but yeah.
And
We
yeah,
just
and I
bought
mean,
some new ones.
you could buy those, but if you find a piece of like heavy closed cell foam, you
Yep.
know, like the ones that I had, they were it was packing material for something that I bought. I don't remember what it was,
Mm.
TV or something like that, and it came as part of the packing material. And I'm just like, hey, I can totally use that.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've been in my pack now for a couple of years, and I use them all the time.
And like even bow drilling, like, you know, kneeling down in the in the dust, right? Like this is the one I
Yep.
got right here. So it's it's just a little, I think it was $5 on Amazon, but you know, it's easy. And for me, I just, because I have a back injury, I can just stick it right in the back of my pants here. And then if I did fall
Yeah.
down or whatever, right, that's going to give me the protection. So
Yeah, yeah, no, and I understand the bad back thing. My back is toast.
yeah, I
Um,
know.
so I mean, carrying weight, and this is where, uh, for all the gear talk that we've had, you know, I certainly don't necessarily recommend that everybody buys all of this stuff and piles it all in their bag, because before you know it, you're going to have 50 pounds in your bag, and that
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah,
But one thing to always think about, you can't plan for everything. You can try and plan for some stuff. Um, but have a basic subset of things, you know, your boo-boo kit or whatever. But always think about, where am I going? What am I doing? Look at your
hmm,
gear and take a loadout that makes sense. Make a subset of gear depending on what you want to do. Um, I like to go and, like, the thing that I do with my wife all the time is we go and make coffee. So we try
yeah,
and find a new place to go hike, find somewhere cool, sit down, make a cup of coffee, and we just enjoy the spot. So, you know, knowing that that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my stove, I'm going to take my pot, um, you know, we're going to have our cups, and we try and take a load out of gear that makes sense for what we're doing.
yeah, of course. Yeah, you're not going to
You know,
bring your skill saw to do a brake job on your truck, right? I mean,
exactly.
maybe you would, I don't know, but yeah,
But and that's something that, I mean, I myself was guilty of. And it was like, oh, all the gear, I'm gonna, you know, bring all this shit. And before you know it, you're 5K down the road and you're like, I want to die.
yeah,
You know, it's just, you know, do I need to bring a headlamp or a lantern when I can bring a headlamp? You know, you and I were
yeah,
talking about these lanterns the other day. This
yeah,
thing is amazing, but I wouldn't take it. This would be like a camp item as opposed to a hike item.
hmm,
Um, this one's a crank. It's got solar. It's got a crank on it. It's got like a 6,000 mAh battery charger in it. Um, awesome little lamp. But again, I wouldn't take it on a hike. That would be a camp thing.
Well, I mean, it's even like my tarp. I mean, I got a good selection of tarps. I'm not going to bring my 20 by 16 tarp, you know, that's 10 mil, and pack it into my backpack. It's just too heavy. It's 30 pounds. But if I'm going, why don't you reveal your face?
Oh yeah, my face reveal. Oh yeah,
And there you go. Didn't see that coming. Good old
I forgot to
camouflage.
do that earlier. That was my joke. Yeah, check out my face reveal. Actually, this one's pretty cool. You're talking about tarp. So
Yeah,
this is a cool piece of kit that I got.
yeah. I know what
It's
you got
rain
there.
poncho.
Yeah,
But this rain poncho has little snaps down the side. You unsnap it, and it actually folds out into, what is it, like a 5x5, something
yeah,
like that
something like
tarp.
that. Yeah, they're awesome, man.
Yeah, just back in December, we went out somewhere to go make coffee. It was right around Christmas, and we went out somewhere and it started to rain, and I was like, "Hey,
Hmm.
we get to use my poncho." So pulled out my paracord, um, Do you daisy chain your paracord?
Never.
No?
Never. I used to do my, like, I'll daisy chain my webbing, but I never do my paracord. No, I hank my paracord. I like my paracord to come out as I'm like keeping it in a hank and then being able to pull it out and keep the hank together until, I want it unfolded. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, look at that. And I have my paracord, and I turn around and I just, put up this tarp, and she was super happy because she was kind of disappointed. She's like, oh, we're gonna have to go home. And I'm like, the fuck we're not going home. We're making coffee.
One day me and Jen were hiking when we first got together, so we were a little bit more ambitious. But we were hiking up this mountain, and same deal. It started snowing, and like not snow, but like wet snow, wet rainy snow. And all I had was my hiking poles. So I had about 10 feet of bank line, and I had an emergency blanket. And I just grabbed the pine cone and captured the corners of the emergency blanket and built a little cover for us to sit there. And we had a couple tea lights for heat, and we just sat there and had a cup of coffee. Actually, we had champagne that day. I think it was our anniversary, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Just to have,
that's a super cool trick that somebody, an old guy that I used to work with, showed me. Was the pine cone trick in the corner of a tarp. So you tear the grommets out on your tarp. What am I going to do? You take the corner of your tarp and put a rock or a pine cone, wrap it around, and then tie around that, and you've got something solid to in the absence of a grommet.
So I got one thing to add to that is, that's a trick I use frequently, but I stopped using rocks. And the reason is because we were at Taylor River camping, and I had a great big tarp set up, and it was me and Al and his wife and my wife, and it's got windy, really windy. And the string broke that was tying the rock into the corner of the tarp. Well, all of a sudden we had this rock flying around in the wind, just, and it was like, holy shit, and trying to grab. Right. So now I use moss, a ball of moss or a pine cone, like something not hard, because if that thing flies around. And another thing I just picked up off a video recently is I would just use, string, wrap it around, tie a knot, whatever, slip knot, whatever. I started using the marlin spike hitch there. It's so simple. It's done. It's so easy to untie. If you don't know how to use the marlin spike hitch, I highly recommend you learn that. It's one of the easiest hitches you can use. It is very effective.
Where's my right in the rain? I gotta write that down. Marlin spike hitch.
Yeah, marlin spike hitch. It's just a simple knot, just like that. Just in 2 seconds, you can tie it. Marlin spike hitch. It's a really, really common knot too. Or another one you can use is an arbor knot, and that's a good one too. But it's a little harder to untie. Well, it's impossible to untie basically, but it works good for holding. It doesn't take up a lot of line.
All right, good to know.
Yeah,
but
you can use clove hitch too.
We talked about that briefly, and I just want to reiterate that as having an all-weather notebook like that in your kit. If you're going for a long hike, little stuff doesn't matter. But if you're going for a long hike, having that is a really good thing to have. You can use it to start a fire. You can use it for trail marking, leaving notes for people. There's so many uses in having it, and so many things that it could benefit you in having a small right in the rain notebook.
Yeah, I mean, even drawing yourself a map of like where you've been. Like here's an example of mine. That's a hand drawn cave map that from a survey.
Yeah,
but just having that information, and even if you want to leave a note, oh, here's my spot. You've got your shelter set up there, and you leave a little note saying, oh, I've gone to the creek, 500 meters that way, in case somebody comes, or,
yeah. And I mean, yours is a bit bigger, which, depending on what you're doing.
This is a little,
yours is more, purpose specific in terms of caving, but they come in, I mean, this thing's the size of the palm of my hand.
I have a small little one, but it's in my other bag. But yeah, I have the same as that, and a pencil too. Like a pen doesn't always work. Pencils are a little bit more reliable.
Yep. Yeah. Don't rely. I mean, it's nice to have a Sharpie. I have a Sharpie in my medical stuff, but for my pad of paper, I always have a pencil because it's going to work. Do you know the story of NASA? The NASA story. So there's a story that NASA wanted to develop a pen that would write upside, write in
Oh, right. Yeah.
space. And they spent millions and millions of dollars to develop this pen that would write in space. And then they went up, and I'm paraphrasing a bit. I don't remember the story verbatim, but basically they go up into the space station. They see the Russian cosmonaut, and they're like, "Well, what are you using?" He's like, "I use pencil."
Yeah.
Right.
On. Yeah. 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 Well, it's and those golf pencils. Guess what else they can work for? Fire starting.
Tinder. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy when you start to think about some of these things that are, these multi-use items that could help you. I mean, even it sounds silly, but sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar can help you with a fire.
Yeah.
Sugar will burn, right? The alcohol in your first aid kit can burn. Alcohol wipes if you have
hand
alcohol
sanitizer
wipes.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Well, I used to, in my emergency kit, I used to carry like two little hitchhikers of vodka, and people were like, "Oh, why do you have vodka?" I said, "Well, for starters, one, I'd like to have a drink after I'm fucked up, and two, it's also a good cleaner. Like, like if you if you have a patient who's all messed up, you give them a shot of vodka. I know it's not probably the right thing to do at the hospital, but if I had a busted hip and you're Jason, do you want a shot or a nip or something? I mean, I don't know. It's nice to have that option.
No, I mean, in somebody with a bleeding condition like myself, it's probably not the greatest idea. But you know what? Depending on what condition I'm in, I am going to look at you and I'm going to say, "Fuck it, give me the shot."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's certainly, again, it's like the cup of coffee. It's even those who don't drink, just that take the edge off. Yeah, exactly. Especially in a panic situation where you're already, high emotion, you're already wound up. It can definitely just try and calm the situation a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important.
Trevor made a good comment here. Extra bootlaces work well too. And that's great for a kit item to have. Like I have Kevlar laces on my boots, but I have broken boots, and yeah, you can just tie them together. But having that extra piece of twine in your kit, whether you're using it for a bow drill string or a snare or anything, right? Like having that option is always great.
So I actually, let's see if I can find it. There it is. I actually had this extra dresser when we moved last time, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! I'm gonna pack this thing full of gear." So I have all my gear in this dresser. So you can buy, obviously just more bootlaces and stuff. What I did is I actually replaced my bootlaces with 550 paracord.
Mm-hmm.
And the 550 paracord that I used is like the 7-strand. So you can pull one strand out. You could use it as like fishing line. But my bootlaces, this paracord now also has what's called a fire wick. And this is the one red strand.
The red one, yeah.
So, in my bootlaces, I've got, I don't remember what each one is length, 24 inches or so. I intentionally had them a little bit long. So my bootlaces, I've got intentionally long. So if I ever needed to, I also have, it also doubles up as paracord. Or I also carry paracord as well. So if my bootlace broke, I would just pull out my paracord and relace my boot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great point.
You might have noticed on my other knife, I have a piece of paracord lashed around my sheath, and that paracord is a specific length. That's perfect for a bow drill string. And actually, when I went to the lake the other day and did a bow drill fire, I actually used that piece of paracord off my knife.
That's the one that you used.
Yep.
So this is my normal knife that I carry. It just sits kind of here in my pack. And it's not anything special. It's a Schrade. I've had a couple of these knives. They're pretty decent, but it's pretty heavy. It's a decent quality steel. I beat the ever living crap out of this thing, and I don't care. But like you said, it just reminded me when you said that, to have that lanyard, that retention.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, the way that if you braid the handle and now you've got like
quite a bit of material. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got
Yeah,
like
I
3
think I
feet of
have that.
paracord.
I'm gonna look at my bag here. Unfortunately, my knife's upstairs, so I'm not gonna go get it. But yeah, same deal. Like on my on my kit here, you can see I've got, you know,
Yeah, there's probably like 6 feet there
yeah, there's
or
enough for a
more.
bow drill fire. Also have this fancy yeah,
Hey,
yeah. I saw that on your jacket. I'm like, hey, I got that on my bag. Yeah.
yeah. I found I got that and the red ensign one from there's a company back east. Was it CP Gear? I think it is.
Yeah.
I was looking trying to find a red ensign patch and I couldn't find one anywhere. I found a flag, I found all sorts of stuff, but I couldn't find an actual patch. And there's a Canadian company. I think they're in Halifax, I want to say. Might be wrong.
And they make the
CP
Vancouver
Gear.
Island one.
Yeah, and they made they have the Vancouver Island one. They've got the red ensign, both with the red and the green leaves. They've got a bunch of other historical patches. There's the ensign with the command symbol. It's like the triangle arrows. Yep. Sorry. So yeah, they're pretty cool. They're not super cheap. I think they're about $20 a patch, and shipping nowadays on anything is insane. But it was worth it.
Al gave me that one. He said when he ordered them, he thought they'd be bigger. They're like quite small. You've probably seen them already, but he gave me that one. He's like, yeah, it was $18 or something for that little tiny patch. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, these ones actually, I think these ones with the backing and they're a full 4x2. I actually kind of wish they were 3x2 because they're almost a little bit long. Or we're only like 20. They're about $20 a piece.
Magenta Zoo. That's where these are from. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got lots of stickers and stuff.
I was just thinking about my so this is my bearing block for my bow drill kit. It's a piece of yew-wood, but this little lanyard on here, that's not just for my handle. This is actually on there because when I'm bow drilling in the rain, I always want to put this down. This way I can just kind of let go of it, and I know it's not going to hit the ground and get wet. But this is long enough. I just pulled it out. This is long enough for a bow drill string too, right? A short one, but it's long enough. So
yeah.
I mean, everywhere you can go, like everywhere you look, you can think of different things, right?
And redundancy in certain aspects, not in all aspects, but in certain aspects, redundancy is a great thing. You know, having, extra batteries or something that's solar, or, hand crank, or having 2 pieces of paracord instead of one. Laws of diminishing return. At some point, it becomes a detriment, and you don't want to, you don't need 30 lighters. But having a couple backups for certain things like that is a great idea, and kind of protects you. What happens if you drop your knife in the river? Well, you have 2 knives. Right.
They actually make, speaking of that, they actually make these in floating versions now. So they've changed the handle content, so they actually float. You can sink them right to the bottom of the lake. They'll pop right back up. I just saw that the other day.
Yeah, you posted the link to that. I watched that, and it's like a cork handle. And when I got to the end of the video and I'm watching him kind of do the torture test on it, and he broke the handle, but.
That's okay, Shannon. I didn't see the link. If you want to post a link to Magenta Zoo, I have no problem with that. If you can put it in the chat. I don't know. I'm not looking at the YouTube page, so I don't know if it just kicked it out or.
So one thing that we haven't talked about is general kind of stuff like books and foraging. So like
I'm interested.
Foraging is I am not super good at foraging, but I definitely kind of know some stuff. But it's something I've been trying to work on, something I've been trying to learn about. So I went and picked up a book specifically about foraging in my area. And this one is Pacific Northwest foraging. So it's not going to be good for people on the East Coast, but they do make a version for different places. This particular book's really good. It's got full color images and tells you about sustainable harvesting and different things. So you don't, you can take something but not wipe it out, which is kind of nice. I don't want to destroy something.
Some things are really sensitive, aren't they?
Yeah, and I want to take advantage of the resource, but I don't want to destroy it so it doesn't exist anymore either. I want to be able to come back another time. So something like sustainable harvesting to me is cool. But when I started looking, so there's like, the nodding. Yeah, you can't see it very well. The nodding onion. So it's basically for like wild onions. The contrast, if you'll be able to see it.
Yep, nodding onion. Yeah.
So it's got, good pictures. It's telling you where to harvest stuff. But it's not only like fruits. So when I bought this book and I started going through it, I realized I just went out my front yard.
Mhm.
Holy shit. There's so much in my front yard that I can eat. I never realized it.
Yeah.
And I walked around and I probably found 7 to 10 things just in my front yard that I could eat. And I'm like, this is amazing. So that book, to take and figure out what's around you, and you, once you start to look and you read a book like that, you start to realize that food around you is a lot more abundant than you thought.
It is. It's funny that you have that right in your hand there, because I also have this right in my hand here. But
Yeah.
what you just said about being specific to the Pacific Northwest, that's where this book fails, is because it's such a dense publication with so many different things. It's really hard to, like, I was trying to identify a plant that I used for tea the other day, and I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but I couldn't find it because there's like just so many different plants, right? So having something
Yeah.
specific to your area, I mean, it's a great book. It's got
So
beautiful pictures, 450 pages, but yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that. And you know who else is coming out with a new book soon? It's Greg Ovens. He's working on his book, and he's got a bunch of foraging, a whole section on foraging in our area. It'd be nice to see.
Well, and now is a good time if you're interested in doing this stuff. Now is a good time to go and find a book like that, because we're just coming into spring and summer where this, a lot of this stuff is going to be growing and abundant. And if you want to get out and go outside, find this stuff. Now is a good time. You can find a book like that for like $30, and you can go outside and go and reap the bounty of nature, and it's all around you. And I mean, it's a lot more than just blackberries and huckleberries, but at the same time, there's a lot of blackberries and huckleberries out there. Trail snacks are good.
Yep. Plantains, man, I couldn't believe how good plantains are. Just broadleaf plantains fried in butter. It's like, oh fuck, these are good, man. Like, this is better than any spinach I've ever had, for sure.
Yeah. Miner's lettuce is another one that's out there.
Too, yeah.
Miner's lettuce is really good.
Those wild onions are delicious too,
Yeah. And it blew my mind how much food was out there when I really started to look, and when I knew what I was looking for, and I was confident. And that's where the full color pictures and everything in that book are really nice, because it gives you some confidence. It's why I personally steer away from mushrooms. Fiddleheads right now is an excellent time for fiddleheads.
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll probably find morels too out there, but you don't like mushrooms.
There are certain, I'm not big on mushrooms. There are certain mushrooms that are really super easy to identify. Chanterelles is one. But then there are some that I personally, and I mean, if you're confident in it and you know what you're doing, cool. But things like pine mushrooms, there are so many white mushrooms out there that are wild, and you can eat this one and it's a death cap, or you can eat this one and it's a pine mushroom and it's really expensive. So I definitely caution anybody on mushrooms. Make sure you know what you're doing. I talked to somebody who's good with mushrooms, and even they said, don't necessarily trust a book. Go out with somebody.
I mean, I carry this little card because I do try and pick mushrooms occasionally, but I carry this little card in my kit, but even still, like this picture of a chanterelle, I mean, I could easily misinterpret that picture as, chanterelles don't look like that, all of them, right? So
yeah,
it's easy to, a chanterelle is an easy example, but like you're saying, when you're getting into those matsutakis and the pine mushrooms and stuff, like if you don't know, you don't know. Hedgehogs are one of my favorite mushrooms. I love hedgehogs.
Well, and for the most part, with things like berries, for the most part, if you make a mistake, and you eat a couple, you get a stomach ache, you might feel sick, but you're probably not going to die. A mushroom,
Yeah,
you can die.
exactly.
Um, a good rule of thumb, if you're not sure, because I mean, even just allergies, if you're going around just stuffing shit in your mouth, right, you could have a problem. So, I mean, one good rule of thumb, if you're trying to eat something in the wild that you've never eaten, take a little bit, just chew up a little bit and spit it out. Does your tongue go numb? Do your lips go numb? Rub it on your lips,
Yeah.
and see what happens. Do you get any kind of weird reaction from it? That's a good way to tell before you commit to eating something. Obviously, the book is going to help you if you've got a book, or it's obvious, wild strawberries look just like they sound. They look like wild strawberries.
They're delicious, by the way.
Oh man, wild strawberries are so good.
Or even the wild raspberries that you can find, like the ground berries. I love that kind of stuff. And that's all coming in season now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that bears eat them all. It's because they're delicious. The other one, just on the topic of books, and there's a lot of books out there, but I like this one personally.
I haven't seen that one.
This is an older one. This one, where is it? What's this one from? It's probably from the 70s. The pictures in it aren't great. I'm sure there's better books out there. Oh God, this one is the publication date on this one is 1945. But there are some things that, regardless of time, or teaches you shelter building, basic shelter building and stuff like that. But there's a lot of books out there that you can go and learn some good skills, some bushcraft stuff. Try it out. Don't bet your life on it. Practicing. Like you do, like I do with fire. Practice. You need to try these things before you rely. You can't rely on something unless you've done it before. And if oh God, I'm dying in the forest, I need to start a fire. I've never done this before. Probably not going to end up well for you.
Yep, exactly. Or even like foraging especially, because it's like you said, it's good to go with somebody else that knows it. And then you can, once you are a little more comfortable with it, there's food everywhere. And the only way you're really gonna, like, I can look at this book all day long, look at all the different striations and textures and try and figure out, but until you actually sit down and this little plant or whatever is good and safe to eat, you don't know until you know, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely.
It's same as Tinder too, like fucking around with Tinder. Like if you're wasting your time trying to ignite something that's just not going to ignite, when there's a perfectly good cedar tree with bark right beside you that you're not even aware that that's actually possibly a better Tinder, right?
Yeah, no, and there's so many little things like that, and that's where I think that that networking with people, that always try and find. You're never going to know everything, and there's always going to be somebody that knows more than you, and try and find those people and learn from them.
Well, the common saying is, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right?
Yeah, and that's where I love to learn from people. I love to teach people. Whatever knowledge you get, try and pass it on. Mm-hmm. Someone else is going to benefit from that. And just us having this discussion today, I hope that people have learned something. Even if you knew 90% of what I said, if you gleaned something from it, a tip or a trick, then we've done a positive thing.
Well, and sometimes it's even just like leading you into that direction of thought, like, oh shit, I hadn't really thought about how important water would be. Even though it's raining every day, it's important, man, because you drink that mud puddle, good luck. You're gonna have the shits from it, or you're gonna get really sick from it. So little things like that, I think a lot of people don't even realize are an issue, right?
Well, and even just collecting rainwater, if you're collecting the drops off the trees, what you don't realize is you're collecting the dust off the tree, you're collecting the bird shit on the leaves. It can still make you sick, knowing how to filter and purify and all of these types of things. Getting diarrhea, you'd be amazed, the people in wars and things where you have, horrible conditions and bad hygiene and all of these things. More people die from the infections and the hygiene and all of those things than they do from the bloody bullets.
That's what I heard. Yeah, more people died in World War II died from diarrhea than they did from being shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a scary thought. I mean, you're talking about people firing bullets at each other, and here you are dying of, what's that game, Oregon Trail? You've died of dysentery,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I mean, if anybody's ever had diarrhea, I'm sure everybody's had a, but to have a really severe case, you get so dehydrated. So now you've compounded it because you don't have clean water to begin with. So you're drinking more shitty water probably. And it's just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that those types of things, planning where you're going, knowing what you're doing. I definitely pack accordingly. If I'm going somewhere that I know is going to be right, sorry. If I know I'm going somewhere that I'm just gonna mute my phone here real quick. If I'm going somewhere that I know is going to have water, I don't really worry too much about it because I've got my pot, I've got my stove and everything. I'll boil it, not a problem.
Yeah.
If I can't boil it, I'll use my filter. But if I'm going somewhere that doesn't have water, or I'm not sure is going to have water, I will carry water with me.
Like up in the Alpine, you're heading up in the Alpine, and all you have to drink out of are those mossy bogs that are, tannin-filled water full of salamanders and frogs, and like that's not clean water. Like it looks beautiful, but it's not clean, right?
No, and even purifying it, do you really want to drink it? And I mean, again, ounces and pounds, it sucks, but a couple bottles of water and
yeah, I always bring my Nalgene with me.
I bring, I try and bring water according to what I'm going to need, and I try and figure it out. I always keep extra bottles in my truck, but it's like, okay, I'm going to walk here. I'm going to make a coffee. I'm going to make some food. Those backpacking meals are great. But I bring one bottle for coffee, one bottle for my food, and then one bottle to drink kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, 15, that's a liter and a half. And when you start counting it 10 pounds a gallon,
yep,
you're at almost 5 pounds of water just at 1.5 liters.
Yep. Yeah, you are. And you don't realize it, but you probably need 2 or 3 liters per day per person just to be, staying in the hydrated area. So
yeah, especially
a lot of us don't fucking drink water. Like I'm not a huge water. I drink it in the morning, but I don't think I don't get thirsty really. And then so you don't drink water all day, and then all of a sudden now you take a leak and you're pissing yellow, and that's an indicator. Holy shit, now I'm starting to feel weak because my electrolytes are all gone. And another really commonly forgotten item is salt to have in your bag, because salt is hard to come by in nature, believe it or not.
Yeah, and water, salt, electrolytes. And the thing is, I mean, I'm like you. I don't drink a ton of water normally, but you know what? I'm hiking. It's windy. It's 85 degrees out.
Yeah.
And before I know it, I'm actually like, I have a water bladder that goes in my pack, and it's a 3-liter water bladder.
Yeah.
And when it's hot out, it blows my mind that I will drink pretty much that whole thing on my own, and I don't even think about it. But yet I've
sip here, and yeah,
and it's like a camelback. Most hiking backs now have a camelback. The nice thing about these filters that I mentioned earlier is that these can actually be plumbed in line with a camelback. So you cut your tube, and then you put the tube over here and the tube over here, and you plumb these in line on your camelback, and then you can literally just go up to a lake
and fill up
your camelback, and it just automatically filters as you drink it. And
will that passively filter, or do you have to have pressure? Or will it gravity filter? If you have your bag
it does need some pressure. But it comes with these squeeze bags, or you can suction it, or like a pop bottle, you can squeeze it through. So like if you're talking like if you're trying to fill a pot, you're going to need some kind of positive pressure. It isn't to flow through, but it's because it's a 0.1 micron, and it's a hollow membrane water filter. So 0.1 microns is tiny. I mean, that's going to be smaller than virus, most viruses and bacteria and things.
Mm-hmm.
At least the waterborne ones we're talking, like Cryptosporidium and Giardia.
Yeah. So what's the weirdest thing you found in the bush? That's a question from Chris.
What's the weirdest thing I found in the bush? Okay. This actually just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Was hiking with the wife. We drove up this skid road, and we went up this road, and it was like really defined at the bottom. The further we went, the worse it got. And we ended up stopping at one point. We're like, okay, we're just going to hike. So we got out and we started to walk, and there's this piece of wood that was just leaning up against this tree, and it looked really weird. We looked down, and there's these rubber gloves, and I'm like, gross. They had duct tape on them, like they were like duct taped. And then we actually found blood nearby, and we were like, what the fuck happened here? And like we couldn't figure it out. We actually were like, is there a body around here?
Yeah.
We started looking around, and we didn't find anything. It was really strange. I don't know what it was. So I don't know if your question is like the weirdest thing, like, oh, I found like a marble hanging from a tree in the middle of nowhere that shouldn't have been there. But no, those rubber gloves, man, that was creepy. That was super creepy. We have found a couple of weird things, like just like little baubles of, just something of a human being in somewhere where, there hasn't been a human being in a long time. And it was just weird to find something like that there.
Yeah.
But yeah, those rubber gloves, that was super creepy, man.
I've never found anything really weird. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't really find much weird stuff. Not much surprise to me. I mean, around here, we're not that remote. Vancouver Island has pretty much been explored. So everywhere you can kind of, I mean, there's parts of the island that are less, but I mean, for the most part, if you're talking about human debris, yeah, I mean, I don't think I found rubber gloves, but I found boots in the bush, and you're like, oh, or like one boot. Like, why is this boot out here? Like, who left their boot?
Why is there, who lost one boot? How did you...
How'd you get home with one,
Yeah. We found a really, the other day when we were at the river, way out in the middle of nowhere at a riverbank, we found an old prospecting hammer that was half buried in the sand on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And this old prospecting hammer, like the handle was pretty much gone. I'd say that thing was probably been buried in the sand for probably 40, 50 years.
That's cool.
It was pretty neat.
We were doing some cave exploring near Zabalas, and so Zabalas is it's a more remote community on Vancouver Island. It's sort of on the northern tip or the northern west coast, and there's very, very jagged and steep mountains there, and it's all limestone up at the top. So first of all, we drive up this logging road, and it's high. Like, we're elevation. We're probably already close to 1,500 meters just where we get out of the truck, and then we walk over this one hill, and there's this valley, and it was all grass. And in the middle of this valley, there was a mining camp, like an abandoned mining camp, and it was like old shit. And I was thinking, man, how did those guys get, like, there's a drill up there, like this cast iron drill. It must weigh 500-600 pounds, and it's just sitting in the middle of the bush. It's like, holy shit, there was no helicopters then. Like, there's like barrels of drilling oil up there. And like, how did you get a 45-gallon drum of oil to the top of a mountain? Like, it was like 6 hours of hiking into this stupid spot, right? Like, how did they get this here?
Yeah, I've thought that a few times. You see like some old mining stuff or old logging stuff out like in the middle of nowhere, like so far away from anything. And yeah, that same thought, like, how did you get this out here?
Yeah.
Back then,
Yeah, horses, I guess, or donkeys or something, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, or ox or
yeah, but it's like, I don't know how they could climb. Like, it's difficult to hike. How would you? I mean, I can't even see a horse making it up there, so I don't know. But
well, and I don't, like I said, I've not been in a lot of other places across the country, but I can tell you that the bush on Vancouver Island, when it's bush, like
Yeah.
we're not talking like, oh, this is hard to walk through. It's like, no, it's physically impossible to walk
Yeah,
through.
you can't
It's
physically
not
go
just,
through it.
yeah, it's not that it's hard. It's that it's physically impossible. Like you can't push through it. I couldn't imagine back then, when we're talking when there was nobody here, or people who were traversing from east to west, across the country to, inhabit the West, what that would have been like. It just absolutely, like, I mean, here's us talking about bushcraft and survival and whatever, going out for a weekend, going on a 10, 20 kilometer, these people hiked thousands of kilometers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
canoe. Yeah,
block and tackle.
yeah,
But
canoeing.
yeah,
And, yeah,
that these people, this was the ultimate survival hike, you know, to
mhm.
go across the country in the conditions, through undeveloped territory that no one, here's us driving down gravel roads. This road sucks. These guys, there's nothing. There's
Well,
nothing.
exactly. Like I went to the Mid Lake on the weekend, and it's 45 kilometers, but you're driving over 2 mountains to get to it, and it's like, okay, well, that was an hour drive to get there. But you think about trying to walk there, like carrying your shit up that big mountain, down that big mountain, up another mountain, down another mountain, just to get to the
Yeah.
lake.
Well, and even then, what's your best course of transport back then? A horse.
Yeah.
Well, even then, you can't ride your horse through everything. You quite literally have to get off the horse and lead the horse through it. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, we're doing this on, maybe medium mode or easy mode.
Easy,
I
yeah.
mean, these
Oh, I mean,
these
even
guys
think
did
about
it
the down trees, like the trees you got to climb over. I mean, sometimes you're coming up and there's a 6-foot tree in front of you, and you got to climb either over it or under it. Like it's not moving. You're not cutting it out
Yeah.
of the way with your silky.
Well, and what if you've got a horse and a wagon?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Figure
know,
it out, dude. Yeah.
you're busting out your axe, and you're gonna, spend the day chopping that tree.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It,
And then
I,
you
I,
come
I,
down and there's a river to cross, right? It's like, holy shit. And then a canyon and a cliff and yeah.
yeah. Now you got to double back and go back 20 kilometers to try and find another way. Yeah. I often think of that as I'm walking through the bush, or after I've done something and been like, man, I thought today was hard. I couldn't imagine if this was me trying to, traverse the Rocky Mountains,
Mhm. Well,
alone
and imagine
with a
every
horse.
every piece of kit you've pulled out today and I've pulled out today didn't exist back then. So they, other than the bow drill or maybe the flint and steel, it was all real.
Yeah.
Like it was as organic and as real as it could get. But those guys were legendary in how they figured things out. I mean, even the old logging and farming stuff is just like, holy crap! I can't believe they accomplished what they accomplished with what they had.
Well, I mean, I had seen a show recently. They were talking about the pyramids in Egypt, and how
Mhm.
even with all of our modern equipment now, that we could do it, but it would be a really, really arduous, expensive, long, drawn out process for us to replicate what they did, 3, 4, or more thousand years ago, depending on some of the newer stuff that's come out. They actually think that the pyramids are much older than we originally thought. Yeah, how did you do this? It blows my mind. So I try, I do very much appreciate the gear and the things that I have. It makes our lives a lot better. Something like a spotting scope. That was actually something that I bought. Was it last year? Just a simple, like, 5 times optical zoom. I think what is it good for, like 2,000 meters? Vortex spotting scope, or rangefinder, sorry. And yeah, this thing's awesome.
It's one thing I don't have is I need to get some. Actually, I was going to buy some new binoculars. I was looking at them a couple weeks ago, and then I kind of forgot about it. But yeah, it's one thing I don't have. Need to replace. I had into that good set. I don't know where they are. So they wouldn't know a little pair of 8x50s or something.
So for what it's worth, I'm a Vortex whore.
Yeah.
one of the reasons, though, are there better optical glasses out there, whether it's a rifle scope or rangefinder binoculars? Yeah, that there's that there are other companies that are arguably got better glass or better. But the nice thing about Vortex is that they have an unconditional lifetime warranty.
Oh, yeah.
So your house can burn down, and you can send them the melted puddle that was your Vortex binoculars, and they'll send you a brand new pair. They're amazing. There's no warranty in the market like theirs that I know of. That's this unconditional. Short of you intentionally smashing it with a hammer and then asking for a new pair. Short of that, they'll anything. They'll replace it. You drop them down a 200-foot cliff. Go get them. They'll give you a new pair.
That's awesome, man.
So they're not cheap. You can buy some cheaper stuff out there. They're not the most expensive though either. So for a good quality middle of the road glass, Vortex is great, and their customer service and their warranty is fantastic.
Well, I mean, you could buy a $50 pair of Canadian Tire binoculars and not be able to see any shit, and have them fog up, and or you can spend $500 and have something for the rest of your life, right? So
yeah, well, and honestly, not even that. I don't remember, what are these 12 by 40? 12 by, say on them. 10 by 42. Oh, yeah. So these are the Vortex Diamondbacks.
Yep.
I mean, per hand wise, right? They're not huge, but they're 10 by 42, and I think they were $250, $300.
That's not bad. Actually, I think that's the exact pair that Greg Ovens had with him the other day.
So I mean, for what it's worth, it's not cheap. But I mean, if you start looking at other brands and other, I mean, even Vortex makes much higher end ones, but I mean, $1,000 is not uncommon to see for something like binoculars.
No, you need them when you're trying to spot animals, for sure.
Well, the nice thing about the rangefinder is you don't get nearly the optical zoom with the rangefinder, but I mean, look how small it is.
Yeah.
Fit your shirt pocket. Weighs, what do these weigh? A pound. And because it's a laser rangefinder, and you can get different ones that'll go, different distances. These ones are good for, I think it was like a kilometer, 1,000 meters, or it might be, what is it? Actually, it might be like 1,400. But regardless, it was $200, and it's like a 5 times optical zoom and a rangefinder at the same time. I found that to be handy.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, man. This has been an eye-opening conversation. I really enjoy your company, and you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. So thanks for coming on, and I think we'll wrap it up here, unless you have something else you want to talk about.
Well, I'm sure once we stop, I'll think of something funny to say, but
yeah, well, you're always welcome to come back. I just wanted to say that coming up, I think I'm going to have a guy from the UK next. I'm not sure if he's in here still. He was in here earlier. I saw him. His name's Bushcraft Sussex. So he's another guy. He's really well-knowledged in foraging. So I'm hoping to have him on. And now, again, that foraging in the UK, but like a lot of this stuff is very similar. A lot of it isn't, but I think that'll be an exciting show. I'm hoping to put that together. Nice. And if you're one person in the chat that wants to come on here and talk about this kind of thing, I'd be happy to have you as a guest. You can just connect with me. Either I have my email in my YouTube channel or on the Telegram channel, and that'd be really cool. So without further ado, I guess we'll 2.5 hours in just about. So it's been awesome. I managed to make it through the whole thing without saying your name. That's perfect. Right.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And I think at the end of the day, I think if I had to leave everybody with one thing, and that's find somebody who knows more than you, or
Yeah.
you know, find somebody that you can share knowledge with. You know, maybe you're better at one thing and they're better at another, but you know, find your friends, right? Find other people and share knowledge, learn from them, teach them. You know, we're all only as good as our weakest link, and we can always make each other better.
That's a good thing. And you know, they always say like two heads are better than one. So, you know, yeah, I like what you said there. That's good stuff. Find somebody smarter than you. I like that.
Well, what's the line from Forrest Gump when him and Bubba are sitting there? You lean against me and I'll lean against you, and that way we don't have to sleep with our heads in the mud.
Right on. That's good. Okay, well, we'll shut her off. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next Tuesday, as I always like to say.
Smoke rises up, midnight flame. Stars twinkle like they know my name. In the shadows I build my game. Play with fire, never the same.
Strike the match, feel the heat, crackling under dancing feet. Embers glow in the darkening street, hearts ignite in every beat.
Burn, baby, burn, take me higher. Leaving trails of wild desire. Lost in sparks and never tire. We love to make fire. Flames that whisper secret souls, wonders in the heat untold. Blaze a path in red and gold, the fires dance brave and bold.